Good afternoon. My name is Lexi Worth, and I'm a senior integrated marketing and communications major here at Ole Miss. And it is my honor to introduce to you the Senior Vice President and Editor-in-Chief of National Geographic and National Geographic Traveler Media, Keith Bellows.
Thank you. So I bring no charts. I normally come bearing lots and lots of pictures, but this doesn't seem like the appropriate forum for pictures of, the Taj Mahal and other sundry places that I tend to punctuate my speeches with. Ostensibly, the talk is, and I'll put this up here, is about, it all starts with print, and I couldn't resist. I had to say, or does it? And I want you to look at this picture because there's a lot going on here that you might not see. This is a great picture by a photojournalist of the Geographic's, Jim Richardson, and it illustrates a couple of things that are pretty important. The first is that nothing is certain, and I will tell you a bit about why that's true of this picture in a sec. And that in some places in the world, change is inevitable. So this picture was taken in Edinburgh. The little boy is a little boy. The woman could be a woman, or it might be a man. And I can tell you that I don't know for sure, but I know it's not either or. So the illustration here is to show that what things look like aren't necessarily what they are. We have a phrase around the society, and it's shift happens, and that's what's going on. Print is the key driver of digital, all things digital now. But I want to tell you a story. 5 years ago, the society's upper management declared that print would soon be dead, and that the tablet was the bridge to tomorrow. Well, the bridge has turned out to be the longest bridge in the world. It looks unlike any bridge we've ever seen. It's sure broken. We don't have a clue how much it's going to cost to rebuild, and we don't know what's waiting for us on the other end. So we're taking a blind leap of faith, just driving it. We're dazed, we're confused, we're dodging car crashes, fender benders all along the way. And maybe at the end of the bridge is, redemption of some sort or a silver lining. But let's start with print. What so many of us know and trust is print. But it is just a start. And in fact, often it is simply an iteration or a parallel track. It's not really a beginning anymore. Our former balkanized content areas and properties at the Society have been reorganized into a sort of a creative melange that by need works across a lot of different properties and a lot of media. And I should say that unlike, Michael and Hearst, we're really not a media company. We only have 3 magazines. We have Traveler, we have Kids, and we have National Geographic magazine. And so we're driven by a different kind of charge, which is that we're all about our mission. And our mission is to really educate people about the planet. So we don't tend to think of ourselves in sort of galvanic, broad sweeps that Michael brings to his enterprise, which is sort of media on steroids. But we still have the same problems. And so we're doing with Traveler, books and blogs and newsletters and short and long form video and film. We tell stories on stage and radio through exhibits and conferences, on maps, on the ground through our expeditions group, through photo seminars and writers' evenings and soon-to-be theme parks. We're virtually in any medium you care to name and in hundreds of countries globally. And yes, even we have bookazines, though we think they're pretty awful. because of the way they're put together. They're basically cobbled together from stuff we've already done. But as we all know, the era of relying on advertising and subscriptions to keep a title profitable is over. In fact, we would be closed today, not the organization, but travel would be closed if not for a travel website that I've been running with my staff. Our numbers of late September are 12,401,000 page views and 2 million plus uniques. But the problem is those aren't even meaningful metrics anymore. What people want, what our consumers want, what we want, what our advertisers want is deep, deep signs of engagement, which dovetails nicely with a very profitable social media strategy that we hit on a couple of years ago. It includes an intelligent travel blog, close to 1 million Twitter followers, more than 3 million Facebook friends, 800,000 Instagram users, which is up 10 times from last year at this time. We're growing our Google Plus and Tumblr and Flipboard and Pinterest communities. We have 70 traveler guidebooks, some of which are online, which we voted the Publishers Weekly's best travel series this year. Almost 40 titles in the works, a lot of non-guide travel books, all of which is to say that we are casting about for sort of as many different ways to touch the consumer as possible. So that's why it all doesn't necessarily start with print. Some of our stuff, and I'll give you a good example, we came up with an idea called Digital Nomad. And a young man came into my office. He was 22 years old. He was a guidebook writer. His name was Andrew Evans, and he said, and I said, well, what would you like? What can I do for you? And he said, well, I want to go to Antarctica. And I said, well, geez, I'd like to go to Antarctica too, and I haven't been there. And he said, no, I want to drive to Antarctica. I want to take a bus to Antarctica. And I said, that's a little bit of a problem. You're at a very geographically literate organization, and it's kind of hard to drive from here to Antarctica. And he said, no, you don't get it. I want to drive a series of buses down from Washington, D.C. to Ushuaia. And this is 6 years ago. And I'm going to upload video. I'm going to do blogging. I'm going to do, I'm going to tweet, et cetera. And I said, how much do you think this is going to cost? He said, $6,000. And of course, we have an expeditions group. We threw in the cruise to Antarctica, and off he went. He took a picture of a rare black penguin, which had never been photographed before. That one little tiny trip, 7 years later, has earned us squeaky clean, no advertiser influence on content, about $10 million in social media. It's a great example of something that was just a complete experiment. And we're doing that kind of thing as much as possible because no longer is it good enough to just rely on pages of magazine, advertising. They're just blowing in the wind. We have to come up with big concepts, and we have a lot of them. Every one of these make money. Every one of them is a separate franchise. Some of them are in print. Some of them are not in print. Some of them started in print. Some of them involve lots of different media. Some of them involve video. Some of them involve in the field reporting. So we have Tours of a Lifetime. We have our photo contest, which makes us about $1 million a year. We have photo seminars, which make about $2.5 million a year. That's one day with a photographer and an editor sitting in a room, just talking about the craft of telling stories through photos. We've just started a City Makers program where we find people who are real originals in cities. We're doing some stuff in the magazine. We're doing a film on it. We're doing things online. We're doing social media around it. We're partnering with cities across America. The first one is Philadelphia. Then we're going to be going to Chicago, Miami, and New Orleans. And what we're doing is we're surfacing the people who are changing the landscape of cities, the originals, the people who are doing amazing things, who are the next wave of craftspeople that are going to transform our urban communities. We have a program with the State Department where they're starting. Only 37% of people in this country have passports. This is about as far away from a print conceived idea as you could get. We think that every child in America should have a passport. That is their ticket to global freedom. I often say that the passport is the new diploma. And this program will take, 37% percentage of passport holders in America. We want to take it to 80%. And that's going to be driven off of total social media. We have a great Writers Live series. We're recognizing Travelers of the Year by giving them huge prizes, sending them around the world on trips. These are people who travel with purpose. So again, it's a bit of print, but mostly it starts with the people and the stories. And our next big project that we have coming up is called the World Legacy Awards. We're partnering with ITB Berlin, which is the largest gathering of travel professionals in the world. It's about 25,000 in March. We are creating a sustainable tourism program where we will be using all 16 of our international editions to bring alive the idea of preserving and sustaining the things that we cherish the most. So that, one of our beliefs is that the things that we have now, you get to experience the Taj Mahal, you get to experience Angkor Wat. Will our children be able to experience those things? And so you can see how we're starting to dimensionalize way away from just the core element of print. And whether it's an organization like National Geographic or it's a small magazine, these principles still work. And I'll speak to it at the back end of the talk. But you got to think beyond the page. So while print is still critical to us, it is no longer exclusively where the story begins. Michael made that very clear in terms of Hearst no longer sees any one of its titles as a magazine. We stopped seeing ourselves as a magazine about 3 or 4 years ago. So the mandate for us now is it's digital first, but it's not digital only. In truth, right now, it's a little bit of a shotgun wedding. And it's built on a very sound bedrock. I think anybody who's in the media business, if they don't have a very clear sense of mission, and not just the sort of airy-fairy stuff they put on, the editor's page or on the masthead, but something that's actually actionable, they're in trouble. So I'm going to give you the two parts of what we have. The first is our travel philosophy, which is it's the cycle of travel. It's dream. We want you to dream about the places that are out there. It's plan. How do we get there? How do we go there? At a moment's notice or with long-term planning. It's go. It's the actual goingness of the experience. And it's share. And it's sharing not just with your social network and with each other, but it's also creating products out of that experience that we can repackage and redistribute and help you do the same. The second part of the sort of the travel equation is tactics. There's 4 of them. We want to inspire. We want to give you the means to travel wisely and well. You could say service. We have to be mobile. Mobility is critically important for us, especially in travel. And we were building communities. We actually have the largest travel media social community of any of our competitors, of any major media group that touches travel. And underneath that are all sorts of things like sustainability and culture and authenticity and photography and travel as transformation and, getting into the local, scene and all of that. Those are just a means to the end. And the end was, these building blocks. And those building blocks are applied in any and all media. There's nothing we will not look at. And, because we have to think about Traveler as just the little engine that could. We have to think so much farther beyond that, to go beyond what magazines typically do. We have to take better advantage of our global resources. We have to continue to reinvent. We have to take advantage of our partner platforms. But, a lot of you don't have those. And I'm going to split you up into two groups. I think that there's those that are in the business themselves and those who want to be in the business. And those who are in the business themselves, they're facing all the same issues we are. And I'm here to tell you that we are not hurling money at this stuff. We don't have it to hurl. So we have to be really smart and really strategic and just, take a lot of chances to try to get a leg up on our competition, who you will hear one of whom from afar. Greg's here tomorrow to talk about what they're doing with their magazine and their stable of social media initiatives. And I think that the really important thing here is for the students in the room to know that this is the most exciting time in media. As much as it's just this bridge to nowhere, seemingly, the number of new jobs that are being created, the number of new opportunities, the number of ways to reach people, the number of ways to define what journalism is and how to extend the reach of what was only 5 or 6 years ago a pretty simple blocking and tackling business now demands, and Michael made this very clear last night, I'm not just looking for somebody who can write a good story or who's a good reporter or a good researcher. I'm looking for somebody who thinks in 3 dimensions, who has that 360-degree view, because we have to have it too, that they can do video, they can do social media, they can do reporting in the field, they can take good photographs, they can, our entire skill set is exploding. So my role now is no longer as editor, and actually I'm leaving the magazine to start to concentrate for the National Geographic on some of the bigger enterprises, big sort of content initiatives that will take the magazine and make it more profitable. What is really clear is that right now, despite a lot of confusion, print needs digital and digital needs print to survive. If you have them separated, you're missing a huge, huge opportunity. Now, the jury is still out on a couple of things. Whether we can wean ourselves fast enough from advertisers, which are working to cut out the middleman, which is traditional media. And I think, again, that full service, consultative route to partnering with advertisers that Michael talked about last night at Hearst is in everybody's future. It's just inevitable. Another question is whether there are enough print lovers to pay enough of a premium to continue to keep print as a viable option. I think the return of the long-playing record has shown that people will pay a huge amount for something they really love and they really see as having a value that they're not getting in alternative media. Another question is whether any kind of digital magazine tablet strategy makes sense. Michael was bang on. I mean, our findings, we're running about 3%, of our total circulation on tablet. And the problem with that is that actually isn't even accurate either, because once you get a subscription, often of which you get as part of your print subscription, how many times do you open it? Half the time you don't even remember it came. If you open it, how long do you stay on it? Is it a viable advertising medium? No, because you can be measured within an inch of your life. And so the metrics are not a leap of faith. They're absolute, to the dotting the I and crossing the T. We have seen no evidence to suggest that this is going to be of much value. And I can tell you that 20% of my staff time is done doing a digital version for 4 to 6 platforms. We're getting rid of 2 of them. And our return on investment is almost negligible. Another question is, what would replace it? Well, what would replace it is something that has a different kind of content cadence, where instead of taking a magazine and just throwing it on a tablet, what we will do is say, let's take this, create a daily feed that comes out 4 times a day, and is all part of that equation that you saw a little bit of at Hearst last night, which is it's a spigot, and it's, you know, you got to open it, and then you got to close it, and then open it and close it. The other question is whether we're really willing to smash the mirror, because even looking into a rearview mirror is not going to help us move forward. By all metrics, Traveler is a huge success. You know, given the amount of money we spend and the challenge that we have, we still are, by anybody's measurement, you know, with 16 international editions, we're the travel newsstand newsstand leader in America. We've been #1 for 16 years. We're the #1 in social media among all major travel media brands. We're the most widely read travel magazine in the world. We have 8 million readers, if you include pass along in the U.S. We're a success, and yet every single day we wake up feeling like we're behind the 8 ball, and we're going to run out of gas. My old boss, Chris Whittle, I used to be down the road in Knoxville, Tennessee, used to say, always leave a warm campfire. It's getting harder to do in an era when, that we're all living in the middle of the site of a forest fire. It's even, where was the campfire? And shift will continue to happen. But here are 10 principles that I try to bring to my job every day, and they're a lot different than the ones that I brought, just as 6 or 7 years ago. 1, change happens. It's happening faster than ever. You got to embrace it, and you have to be willing to be uncomfortable, because if you're not uncomfortable, you're not doing the right things. 2, you have to listen more closely than ever to the consumer. And I'm not talking about, what they like on the cover or all that kind of stuff. I'm talking as much about that as I am about what they want to consume, where they want to consume it, how they want to consume it, how often they want to consume it, how much they want to be part of the consumption discussion, how much, should we be, bringing them into the tent, under the tent, and becoming partners with them. All of these are questions that we are grappling with now. Number 3, be flexible. Yesterday's rules are today's barriers. And I cannot tell you how often I hear people start to slip back into, and you talk about newsstand. There's still people, and there are people in our organization who say, well, no, you put the cover lines here, or you only have this color, or you don't do this, or you do this. Who knows? Nobody has the answers. You have to be, number 4, media and distribution agnostic. If you start to think about the channels, you're thinking about the wrong things. You have to think about the content first and worry about the channels later. 5, go back to school and realize that your employees may also be your best teachers. And this is critical, because it's critical for those of us who are in the business, but it's also critical for those of you who have an interest in being in the business. It used to be that, we were all like, we had all this experience, and people would come in, they were 23 years old, and they needed to learn the ropes and everything else. Well, now I've got people, across the hall from me coming in, and I'm going like, oh, how do you do this? And why do you do this? And tell me how to read this. And it's an amazingly liberating thing, because suddenly the walls between, gray eminence and young whippersnapper completely break down, and you're all in the same game together. General Stanley McChrystal told a wonderful story. I was at TED, and he said, I had just gotten to Afghanistan, and I was in this huge airplane hangar, and there were about 5,000 men there. And right in front of me were a whole bunch of young kids. He said, and I hate to say that's what I called them. And I pointed down and I said, son, how old were you on 9/11? And the boy said, I was 6, sir. And he realized in this moment that the men he was leading were a completely different kind of person those he'd trained with at West Point. And he said over the next year, he realized that he was going to be leading by cell phone. He was going to be sending drones into battle. The whole complexion of the content of his day-to-day and the context of his day-to-day had changed. And what he said was, I have the wisdom and I have the experience, but they understand intuitively what needs to get done. And that intuition is absolutely critical to any organization. And you who are graduating from this school, and that's what you need to really rely on. You know this world innately. We had to learn it. And his sort of little mantra was listen, 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 and lead. So even if you're the boss, this is point number 6, don't be afraid to say, I don't know. I find myself saying it all the time. It took me a long time to get there. Now I think it's really great. One of my mentors, Richard Werman, who started the TED conference, once said, all these people are telling me what the answers are. I just go like, what's the question? And I always, want to come into a discussion not having an answer, because it gives me a place to start. Number 7, spend at least 30% of your time, and this is a little scary, spend 30% of your time creating new content models and revenue streams. 30% of your time. If I had not done that, we would be out of business right now. Number 8, steal from the best. Steal from the best. Look for the best practices, the best people, and no matter what industry or what source. I get great ideas from people who are doing stuff in the automotive business, people who are doing stuff in, technology, everywhere. It's all out there. You just have to stop reading the newspaper or whatever you read from a limited perspective that, oh, this is the travel page, therefore if I read that, I know what I'm doing. No. In fact, that's the worst thing to be doing. 9, experiment. Don't be afraid to fail. You've heard this over and over and over again. I say if I have a 60%, success rate, I'm doing incredibly well. And you're going to hear this more and more. CNN just laid off, almost 1,500 people, and they said that they need to do more. They need to do more, and they need to do more with less. And that's going to be the mantra going forward as well. So, in a sense, whether or not it starts with print or it doesn't really matter. Who cares whether it all begins with print? For now, print is part of the picture. I happen to believe it will always be part of the picture. But print is a piece of the puzzle, a piece of the media pie, and it's the stories that drive the media. It is the stories. It is not what necessarily the pipeline is, it's what you put through it. Don't lose sight of that. Thank you.
Questions? As in like Q, yeah.
How do you get revenue? Explain the revenue model of the bus trip to Antarctica and back. I don't quite understand how you generate revenue out of that.
Okay.
I know you have to go and get pictures, but how does that work?
All right. First of all, we didn't start with the idea that it was going to make any revenue. We started because it was a great story. And then Andrew came back, and my publicist and I were going out to Australia to talk to the Australian PR folks about something completely unrelated. And I thought, darn, this is sort of like where in the world is Matt Lauer? We could put this guy on the road and he could go and go and go, except we just can't afford it. So I said to the Australian PR people, I said, what if we put him on the road in Australia for 3 months? You pay all of his expenses, but you have no influence over where he goes, when he goes, how he goes. You just pick up the tab. This isn't an ad buy. This is just you enabling us to take what we've learned with him and his followers and just let him go. And they said, so they made a deal with Qantas. They made a deal, with various hotel chains and stuff. And off he went. And it was perfect. It went perfectly. They didn't make him wear like little kangaroo jerseys and, stop off and have dinner with the general manager or anything like that. He just went out there. And about halfway through the trip, the Australian advertising folks go, they went, wow, this guy's got an incredible following. We should advertise. And we said, well, yeah, but you can't advertise against him. I mean, if you want to take run of sight, that's great. And we were building out a site of his travels so you could follow him. And so they took out what in the first year was about a $600,000 ad buy. There was no relationship. We said, we have something here if we can hold the line. Now, one of the fortunate things about our brand is that we can pretty clearly say, now look, we are absolutely who we are. We don't blur the line. There's a church and state thing here. And I can speak to that in a moment. So 6 years later, we've done, there's some repeat countries. Canada's done a couple of provinces and stuff. I'd say probably 25 of those kinds of trips. And the support is there. The advertiser can play or not. They almost always do. They don't play directly adjacent to the content that we're, creating. They don't have any influence. They try. You dream it, and they try harder and harder every year. But we keep on pushing them back because we say, the reason you want to use us is because it's not using you. You can hire bloggers to do this for nothing. You want our imprimatur on it, so you have some independence, and therefore people are a little bit more believing of it. Now, how long can we hold the line? That's a big thing for all of us, in the business. And, if you look at what Michael showed last night, I mean, it's so hard to even know where there is a line. And I think that inevitably that's where we're, I was on the board of ASME for 4 years, and I kind of remember those discussions where you would talk about, oh, well, that's absolutely ridiculous. They put such and such and such and such. Now it's like, I mean, where do you draw it? It's hard to know.
Roy?
Did I understand you to say that you make $1 million off your photo contest? And if so, how?
$1 billion?
Million.
No, we were about $1 million because there's 3 ways. The first is we charge an entry fee. We also charge a late entry fee. The second is that we have preferred rates to use that photography, which is a great deal for the photographer. And it's a great deal for us because if we find a photograph that we love, we might normally pay ASMP rates of, I'll make this up, of $500 for the picture. But our preferred rate gets it for us for $100. And one thing we know is that, everybody can take one good photograph. They just can't consistently go into the field and take 100 good photographs. So if you get that one good photograph of a place very few people go to, it's worth it. So if you cum those 2 numbers, you get to about $1 million.
One more question. Go ahead.
You were talking about how you wanted every child to have a passport. My family, I've been to New York, in Buffalo, New York, was doing a thing about a week ago where if you brought a valid passport picture, they were doing free passports for citizens. Do you see that going out more around the country with helping out with U.S. citizens getting free passports?
I don't think they're going to be free because
I just was curious because that's how they were doing it up there. If you brought a valid picture, then it was a free passport.
yeah, well, the State Department basically categorically says it's not possible because it costs them. So a passport photograph, depending on your age and stuff, is
I was just curious if you were going to see that popping up more.
well. Okay, so there's a big processing fee that goes on. What we're going to do around this passport program, Power of Passport, is to partner with advertisers who have a global sensibility, and also to work with the Case Foundation, which is Steve Case's wife's nonprofit foundation, who's very, very powerful in raising awareness and funds around social media initiatives. And so that we can get a deal where if you do certain things, you can get a match for half the cost of the passport. And we're also working with Bonnaroo on that, so.
Thank you. Thanks, man.